What's going on, everybody? How you doing? In today's video, this is a donation request. This is for Rob. This is Black Sabbath, The Wizard, off of their first album from 1970. Okay, and before I get into this, if you're new here, please subscribe. Check out my videos, all kinds of videos, reaction videos, bass videos, music videos. Check it out. If you like the channel, you want to support the channel, all kinds of ways you can get super thanks underneath this video. You can hit me direct in the description. I got PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, Amazon wishlist, mailing address, and I do donation requests just like this one. So if there's something you want me to listen to, watch, talk about, hit me direct, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo. In the notes section, leave a link, leave a description, let me know what you want the video to be on, and I'll make the video. You can also email me at jpanreadsemail@gmail.com. Thank you guys. There's not many people that take advantage of all that like Rob. Okay, Rob is emailing me. Rob is asking questions. Rob is prodding and inquiring all the time. And that's great. I mean, I think that he's helped make some of the best videos that I've done. I remember the first one that I did where he asked, up to the point I was in the Rush discography, do a video on what I think the three defining Rush songs are. Up to that point that I was in the discography. And it was a super fun video to make. I was like, wow, that's awesome. Most people aren't asking questions. They're just like, hey, check out this song. Hey, do this song. Hey, do this song. And that's great. That's great too. But Rob is different. Okay, so Rob wants The Wizard, and here's what he says. Of course, you know the track, so it's not a reaction to the music, because he knows that I know Black Sabbath, a lot of Black Sabbath, specifically the early stuff, which I have heard this, I do know it, although it's been a minute since I've heard it, so it'll be great to hear it again. So yes, I've heard this. But will be a reaction to my questions, comments, and might inspire discussion. See, that's the thing about Rob. He always wants, he wants questions. He wants me to hit specific talking points. He wants to go through and see what people say in the comments, which is amazing. That's really cool. That's like really getting as much as you can out of this, which is super awesome. Of course, I knew Paranoid, the song, and Iron Man, but it's only in the past year that I really dove into early Black Sabbath albums, which is incredible. How dare you not know Black Sabbath? Where you been? How could you have missed Black Sabbath? That's incredible. Is it because there's just a zillion songs and bands and music out there and you just didn't get to it yet? That's incredible. People shame me how do you not, especially doing music for a living and having went to music school, they're just like, that's the treatment I get all the time. And it's just like, yo, maybe think for 2 seconds. Maybe think that like I was into other things. Maybe think that there's things that I know really well that maybe you don't know like at all. Everybody knows different stuff. Anyways, that's reading that sentence. I'm just like, I think of that kind of thing. I'm just like, yo. And I'm going to guess that Rob is older than me. Okay. But it's only in the past year that I'm not dogging on you, Rob, by the way. Just using it as a you know what I'm saying. Not after you. But it's only in the past year that I really dove into the early Black Sabbath albums. And it was The Wizard that really caught me on the first listen of the debut album. Please consider my thoughts below and run with them. There is a harmonica on a metal album. A harmonica. I really think Ozzy's voice and the forward motion of the music portray a scene where Ozzy is telling the story of the wizard while sitting around a medieval campfire of a wizard who is undaunted and relentlessly moving forward. Plus, it was 1970. I'm actually amazed how they took all the sounds of the 60s and worked it into this album in a natural seeming progression that resulted in a whole new metal vibe. If you look at the first Black Sabbath from different angles, you can see it was both built upon what came before, but also somehow charting new territory, similar to Nirvana Teen Spirit. Curious to learn who else would you have called metal when the first Black Sabbath album came out? Okay, so that's something that I'm going to leave to everybody else because I was not alive when the first Black Sabbath album came out. So I don't know. I think that that's a better question for people in the audience that remember this coming out, that were around at the time. Who else was metal when this came out? What was it like? If you were into this kind of music, what was it like? Because I can't honestly answer that question. I don't know. You know, I just know, like, looking back, like listening, being like, okay, this is what I was into. This is, you know, what else was out in 1970. I'd be like looking things up and being like, okay, this was out, this came out, okay, Deep Purple, right? 1970, you know, okay, Zeppelin was like around the corner, was right there and around the corner. I didn't listen to Deep Purple. I wasn't like into Deep Purple, so I don't know a ton of Deep Purple actually. But I know that they've been considered an early heavy metal band. Led Zeppelin, obviously, early heavy metal, potentially. I don't know if you guys, I think I've mentioned this before, but Dick Dale, I've seen that guy, and he's called himself, aside from the king of surf guitar, the godfather of metal. I think, is that what he would say? The godfather of metal, of heavy metal? I think that maybe had to do with, which in a way does make sense, but also I think he was thinking about, in terms of like his picking style and all of that, the speed, but also just the loudness. But I'm pretty sure nobody would think that. They'd be like, wait a minute, you play surf music, you know, not metal. Yeah, they're not like thinking of it in that kind of way. But I guess I get what he was saying about that. But anyways, so I'm leaving that question up to the audience. Who else would you have called metal in 1970 when this album came out? Okay, so we're going to check out the song, and then we're going to get to talking. Cool? Let's do this. Black Sabbath, The Wizard. Bam. Okay, so yeah, great one, great one. I'm just looking here, right, just on the Wikipedia page of the album, because that's just often where I go, because it's just, you get basic information, all that kind of thing, but this sums it up perfectly to me in terms of the harmonica and where that came from and what the heck is going on here. And it actually comes from Rolling Stone magazine, which, you know, all right, give it to them. The album that arguably invented heavy metal was built on thunderous blues rock. There it is right there. It's right there. That's it. That's why there's a harmonica. That's exactly why there's harmonica. And because apparently Ozzy could play that on harmonica. Right? That's exactly why. Because there it's like a it's bluesy rock. It was based off of that. Right? The riffs, there's all the pentatonic riffs. It's all just blues, basically. But it's like more metal, more grungy, more darker, right? Power chords, stuff like that. So just reading that like jumped right out at me. I'm like, this is exactly why. This is exactly why. Boston Globe described the music of Black Sabbath as hard blues rock. Birth of heavy metal as we know it transcends its clear roots in blues rock and psychedelia to become something more. Sonic ugliness as a reflection of the bleak industrial nightmare of the group's hometown Birmingham. Loose blues rock jamming learns through the English rock band Cream. Yeah, that's right, Cream. And Cream was before this. Cream was late 60s. I could see how you could say that they're metal-ish, and that's blues, right? That's mostly blues, but I can see how, because, I mean, you know, Ginger Baker is pretty bombastic. Black Sabbath is the generally accepted starting point when heavy metal became distinct from rock and roll. Album represented a transition from blues rock into something uglier, and that this sound found deeper gravity via mournful singing and a sinister rhythmic pulse. Black Sabbath's combined elements of rock, jazz, and blues with heavy distortion created one of the most influential albums in the history of heavy metal, lauded as perhaps the first true heavy metal album. Also been credited as the first record in stoner rock. Yeah. I mean, all of these, you know, that's why I'm really into like those New Orleans bands, which started with Pantera, because I think, I mean, yes, Pantera, Texas, but Phil Anselmo, New Orleans. And then he's always repping Crowbar, I Hate God, like those New Orleans bands. And I love them. To me, they're awesome. And Down's first record is ridiculous. I remember listening, man, that's still to this day like one of my favorite records. It's just such a great record. Just awesome stuff. And it's like this. It's basically like this. More or less. You know, like you're hearing where they're coming, where they're taking Black Sabbath, especially Black Sabbath Volume 4. Really, really taking from Volume 4. But I like that stuff. I think it's great. And it's based in blues. It's based in blues. It's rock music. It's heavy, dark rock music that's based in blues. That's basically what it is. And that's why the harmonica, and that's what makes sense to me. Harmonica makes more sense than saxophone in terms of like metal music and heavy music. That makes more sense. I think that you could even take like a one of those like washboard, you know, with the what do you call those things on your fingers? Whatever you call them, like one of those washboards, you know, and incorporate that into this kind of music. I bet you it'll work. It's because that's concept, right? Which I like. Concept, and that's what this is. That's why this works. That's why it's great. It's because you're pulling from these elements and you're making it deeper and kind of richer, right? But you're starting from the root, which is super important. You're starting from the root, which is super important. The root here is blues. That's why the harmonica, because that's just what makes sense. How he's singing, the scales that they're using, right? The harmony that they're using, it's all just blues, right? They're playing pentatonic scales. So there's all that. What else? Ozzy's voice and the forward motion of the music portray a scene where Ozzy is telling the story of the wizard while sitting around a medieval campfire of a wizard who is undaunted and relentlessly moving forward. I mean, I think that all that is like kind of the essence of Ozzy just in general. You know, like that's just, you know, like you can think of him as the wizard because he is, right? Ozzy just is that. He like encompasses, encapsulates that. Right, took the sounds of the 60s and worked it into this album in natural seeming progression that resulted in a whole new metal vibe. It's I mean, they recorded it in 1969, so there's that. It was technically 60s, but then they released it in 1970. I know that that's not what you're saying. You know, but also just they were heavier and they were darker. Like they just sounded darker. But what they're doing is still, if you take the basics of like the Yardbirds that I'm hearing, or Cream, it's still, or Zeppelin, it's still all that stuff. It's still all that stuff. It's just in their style, in their vibe. I mean, let's see, 1970. By this point, Led Zeppelin had already come out with Led Zeppelin 1 and Led Zeppelin 2. Led Zeppelin 2 was released in October of 69. This album was recorded in October of 69. Interesting. They recorded in a single 12-hour session on October 16, 1969. Iommi said, we just went in the studio and did it in a day. We played our live set and that was it. There you go. We actually thought a whole day was quite a long time. Then off we went the next day to play for 20 pounds in Switzerland. Virtually no overdubs added to the album. We thought we have 2 days to do it, and one of the days is mixing, so we played live. Ozzy was singing at the same time. We just put him in a separate booth and off we went. We never had a second run of most of the stuff. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, they just played their set. That's great. That's how tight they were. The key of the band's new sound on the album was Iommi's distinctive playing style that he developed after an accident at a sheet metal factory where he was working at the age of 17, in which the tips of the middle fingers of his fretting hand were severed. Iommi created a pair of false fingertips using plastic from a dish detergent bottle and detuned the strings on his guitar to make it easier for him to bend the strings, creating a massive heavy sound. I'd play a load of chords and I'd have to play fifths because I couldn't play fourths because of my fingers. That helped develop my style of playing, bending the strings and hitting the open string at the same time just to make the sound wilder. Back then the bass player was supposed to do all these melodic runs, but I didn't know how to do that because I'd been a guitarist, so all I did was follow Tony's riff. That made the sound heavier. And Geezer plays like that was Geezer talking. The Geezer also plays a lot more like kind of up high, but also he plays with this hand up on the neck, which is like a different tone than if you were to play like on the pickup or back by the bridge. The wizard was inspired by the character of Gandalf from The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Latter includes harmonica played by Osborne. I actually think that the thing that makes it more metal and less blues, in a way, is actually Bill Ward. I'm just sitting here thinking about the song, listening to the song in my head, just trying to just think about it. And I'm like, you know, that whole harmonica part and the riff, I mean, you could rearrange that as like just a blues, basically. But it's Bill Ward's fills and how he's hitting the drums that just makes it even heavier. Anything else? Yeah, I mean, I think that's basically it. That's the thing. I think that a lot of what they were talking about in this Wikipedia page, just what's pulled from the critics, you know, just people talking about it, makes a lot of sense, actually. I mean, you know, they've had decades to rewrite history. They've had decades to rewrite history. I imagine when it first came out, they're just like, this is garbage, get it out of here, or whatever. And then they're like, oh, you know, after it becomes a smash, they're just like, oh, we loved it the whole time. Right? So, but I think that what they're saying is pretty accurate. Built on thunderous blues rock, and that's Black Sabbath. That's pretty much it. That's like exactly Black Sabbath. Thunderous blues rock. I mean, that's basically where metal came from. That, I mean, that's it. That's it. You know, I bet you can listen to Chuck Berry and hear it. I bet you. I haven't listened to a ton of Chuck Berry, but I bet you. I bet you. I bet you can even listen to Little Richard and hear it. And that shit's a piano. But I bet you that the vibe is there because it's just blues. So there it is. All right. Wizard, Black Sabbath. Fantastic. Amazing. Thank you guys. I'll catch you in the next video.